Jewish family. How has your Jewish upbringing influenced the ethics or messages of your work, or even your outlook on life today?
Good question. Part of that answer is I have no idea, because I don't know what I would have been like if I hadn't had it. The place that I know that, at least for me, the bit that really got my interest, as it were, about being Jewish, was when I was about 12, and I was sent up to North London to stay with some relatives for my bar mitzvah lessons, which I got from an extremely ultra-Orthodox cantor. And off in the vast, there are people who are biblical literalists. He was a rabbinical saying literalist. You know, if there was an anecdote somewhere about a man who did this, you know, like the joke about the rabbi and his driver, and the driver's heard all of the rabbi's sage sayings about the Bible 1,000 times, and finally the rabbi, the driver turns to the rabbi and he says, "Rabbi, could I, you know, I've heard you tell these stories 1,000 times, I've heard every question, every answer." It's like Neil Gaiman going to a signing. It's the questions are always the same. Please, can I, for one, they aren't really. Can I, for once, just answer the questions? And the rabbi, and you'll be the driver. And the rabbi says, okay. They go to a town they've never been to before, and they get up there, and the driver, who has heard all these questions before, everybody asks a question, and he answers as the rabbi would answer, and with learning and wit and piety and brilliance, and everybody's impressed. And finally, at the back, an elderly rabbinical scholar puts up his hand, and this is somebody who's been off studying the Torah on his own, and he's come up with a question of such brilliance and such depth, and something that only this great rabbi could ever possibly solve. He puts up his hand, he asks this question, he propounds it. And the driver looks at him, he says, "You're asking me that?" He said, "A question that simple, even my driver could answer it." And as far as this elderly cantor was concerned, who did my bar mitzvah lesson, that would have been a true story about two true people. So, but it was absolutely wonderful, because I wound up having absolutely no interest in my bar mitzvah lessons of any kind, delighting enormously in getting him off the subject. And he would get onto the subject of weird, obscure, you know, tiny little weird things. And years later, when I was writing Sandman, people would come up to me and they'd say, "How did you know that story? That's the most obscure story there is, and you put it in the Sandman." And I would sit there and I'd think, that I owe entirely to the Reverend Meyerlab. So, things like, you know, Adam having the 3 wives, and the one in the middle. Everybody knows about Lilith, and everybody knows about Eve. The one in the middle, who God actually created in front of Adam, and from the bones up. You know, he started with bones, and then nerves, and flesh, and sinew, and skin. And at the end, Adam just was so sickened by this he wouldn't go near her. So then they put him to sleep and created Eve, which is a lovely story. Nobody knew it, as far as I can tell, except me. There you go.